people want to know, like, what have we been up to?
Yeah.
And,
so
like,
let's tell you.
Hi, welcome
to prom.
No,
just cut the beginning off.
No. Oh, I'm leaving it in.
No.
I'm leaving it in because last week I left in the part about the STDs and you were like, just leave it in. I left it in.
Did you leave it in?
I did.
Oh, no.
So we're leaving this in. Welcome to Pro-Life Without Borders.
Without Borders. I just can't. I think it's because it all starts with pro. Pro.
I understand. Talking is hard.
It is hard. No, I've had a week where I have thought I've had conversations with people and then found out that I did not.
Yes, you have.
At the same time, okay, so as the boss, I feel like it would be very easy for me to just insist that we have the conversation. And I don't do that. I
No, you like openly admit, like, I made this up, didn't I?
Yes.
Or like,
and everyone's like, we did not talk about that. But I also assume, like, my instinct is that if something is wrong, it's probably me.
Yeah.
So, like, there's definitely been times, this is actually hilarious. She probably doesn't listen to the podcast, but if she did, she'll be really mad. So, Rachel, our nurse manager, I was working at the office, and this was before Becky came. So, Alex was here, and she was working at the office, and Rachel was working at the office. All of a sudden, Rachel starts, like, rushing around and leaves. But like half an hour before we close. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, maybe she has something to do.
Yeah, it happens.
Like she has an appointment or she has to get home for her kids or whatever. Like she seemed in a hurry and I didn't want to bug her. Like I realize I'm the boss, but I didn't want to be like, where are you going? Because I'm assuming that she cleared it with like Mary Jo or, whatever. Like I don't care. So then Alex and I are just sitting there and we close out, the last half hour. I get a Slack message from her and it's like, why didn't you stop me? And I'm like, stop you from what? So on Mondays, this is for our listeners, we close at 6.
Yes.
On every other day, we close at 5. And so Rachel just low-key forgot
that it was Monday.
And so she thought she was like working too long and she tries to be very mindful of her hours. Because
right.
Obviously we have to pay her and she's hourly. And so she just rushed off.
To be fair.
And then she's like, why didn't you stop me? And I'm like, I thought you had somewhere to be. Like, I don't know.
Seemed urgent.
I just assumed that I was supposed to know that you were leaving early and forgot.
To be fair, and not to date the podcast at all, but to date the podcast, it is the week before Thanksgiving this week.
Yes. But this will be going out the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes. No. This will be going out the week after Thanksgiving.
This will be going out the week after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
So you've already had Thanksgiving. You've already had your first day of deer season. Like that's all gone. But we are filming it the week before Thanksgiving because of like vacation time and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm travel for
And I think every person that I've interacted with today, and potentially even just this week, has thought that Thanksgiving is like this week.
Right. Which is very problematic if you are cooking the turkey.
You're already too late. Like if
you're too early and you're going to have like moldy turkey.
No, because like if your turkey was frozen, it takes like 3 days to thaw a turkey.
Right. So like
in the fridge.
If you think that Thanksgiving is this week, your turkey's already out.
Oh, yeah.
And so then your turkey's going to be like overthawed.
Right. No, I don't think anyone I've talked to has already thawed their turkey, which would be a problem if Thanksgiving was this week because now you haven't thawed your turkey.
It's honestly the biggest concern.
It really is.
Is the turkey going to be frozen on
all of this to say, I feel like once you enter like the holidays, time just becomes non-existent.
It stretches weird.
It gets weird, especially like the time between between Christmas and New Year. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I don't know what goes on. I don't know what day it is. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. Doesn't exist to me.
Right.
It's just weird.
Well, and I think I enter into a very weird time warp after the last board meeting of the year. So I spend the whole second half of the year living in the next year already.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about the next year's budget and the next year's planning and the next year's calendar. So I already feel like I'm weirdly ahead of everyone else because I'm done with this year, like in July.
2024 is dead to you.
It's over. I've been thinking about 2025 for months. But as soon as the final board meeting is done, okay, officer elections are done, board members are voted in or cycled off, budget is approved, goals are approved. Like I have projects to wrap up at the end of the year for sure.
Yeah.
But all the major stuff has already happened. It's been done. It's been signed, sealed, delivered, And so there's a couple reasons that matters. So I'm entering into the final season of the year. Giving is a big deal at the end of the year because a lot of our giving comes in the final quarter.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time talking with donors who have questions and doing tours and like that kind of thing to make sure people feel comfortable giving to us. I do wrap up some projects, but really I'm already starting on stuff for 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make things even weirder, I have an annual pledge. I think you're aware of this, to Mary Jo, but to the staff as a whole, that I will not start anything new from Thanksgiving until we come back after New Year's.
Which we have not necessarily been faithful to in the past.
No, we have, since it started.
Like this year? Like, because I very distinctly recall a project that you and I did.
Was technically Christmas.
Yeah, it was actually Christmas Day, because that's how lame we are. We worked on Christmas Day.
But I feel like that was an extreme situation. First of all, we were both having a very bad Christmas.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
And we just wanted it to be over. And so we started working on the way home from Christmas at my in-laws.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was not great. But also, like, other than you and I, who were willingly entering into a new project, no one else had to hear about it or deal with it. Oh, no,
we did this, like, January. Basically in secret.
Yes,
we came back from Christmas break with an entire course.
Yes. And then we recorded it, like, the next week.
Yeah.
But yeah. Great. Okay, so I did do that. Other than that, I feel like I've been pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
I did technically start the coalition during the no season.
Yeah.
But it didn't really start until January.
Well, that's how I feel about the Bright Course training that we did. Yeah, like, I mean, really like, it didn't actually start. We just planned the entire thing and wrote it on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
But then, like, we didn't do anything with that until
after, So I think
January 7th or whatever. Like, it's all good.
Yeah. So I am in a week.
Just all this to say, we don't know what week it is.
But in a week, I officially cannot start anything new until after the New Year.
So get it in now, is what you're saying. Like, we have a week. Yeah. See, I'm taking vacation days, so I will be.
See, I'll go
out of here.
My annual vacation. That's what, like, the British call it. They call it annual leave.
Yeah. Like, that's cute.
It is cute. So my annual leave, because I do it, it's the same every year, is hunting. The first week of hunting season.
Yeah, for rifle season.
For rifle. So I'll go, I do not hunt, Anthony hunts, but I'll be off like Thursday for Thanksgiving, Friday, and then the whole next week. So it's actually, other than the part between Christmas and New Year's, it's my longest vacation of the year. And it's a true vacation, like where the part between Christmas and New Year's, I'm often coming in.
Yeah, because there's stuff, lo and behold, payroll has to be processed. Donors still want to donate. And like, we're not about to be like, sorry, you can't donate because it's Christmas.
Hear this story. Like, so I will not mention the names of any organizations because I would never. Mm-hmm. But I have a friend who runs a nonprofit.
Okay.
Actually, I have a lot of friends. That doesn't narrow it down at all.
Yeah, I was like that. That's all of our friends essentially.
Yes, they got a phone call from like out of the blue. This person had to unload a lot of money, like tens of thousands of dollars by the end of the year. It was like an inheritance thing.
Okay, yeah, like tax thing and
it was
whatnot.
A tax thing, and they had to donate this money, and it was like, because it was in the state, it was weird, and they didn't know how much they had to, and they didn't donate enough, and they had to donate more. Anyway, so they call my friend, and they're like, can we still donate? It's like the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah,
and they're
the week that doesn't exist.
Yes, you can still donate. Like, you can donate up until January 31st, because legally, if the check is received before not January 31st, December 31st. If the check is received January 1st or later, it's in the new year. Mm-hmm. But if it's received or mailed by December 31st, it counts for the old year. So that's really important for tax purposes.
Sure.
So he's like, yeah, as long as we get it before by December 31st, you're fine. Well, apparently this person had called another nonprofit and wanted to donate tens of thousands of dollars. And this nonprofit told them, we already closed our books for the year. We can't receive it.
Wow, you've got to know. If someone called us and was like, we need to offload tens of thousands of dollars, and I was on Christmas annual leave.
Yeah.
And if I was somehow the person who had to deal with this, which I'm not, like, I don't deal with those matters here. But if I were, I would fly back to take the tens of thousands of dollars, and I would just charge it the promise of life, because we like tens of thousands of dollars minus my last minute plane ticket home.
Well, and that being said, like, anyone,
if you or someone you know is looking to offload tens of thousands of dollars before December 31st, you can do so at www.promiseoflifenetwork.org/donate. Or you can mail us a check, or you could call me and I'll come personally pick up the check.
Yeah,
especially if it's somewhere cool, but mostly the amount of zeros.
The reality is that there are individuals, not me in my current stage of life, who feel like they have to donate a certain amount of money by a certain time in order to make it work for their taxes.
Yeah.
So if any person wants to donate at any time of any amount, I'm going to do my absolute best to accommodate them.
Yeah.
So like if you want to donate $20 in between Christmas and New Year's and you want to talk to me, I will meet with you. Like I'm a sucker. Like I'll meet with you and have coffee with you and talk to you and do a tour, like whatever. I'm not going to I try not to base it based on how much they're donating, but I also realize that like someone who's donating $20 is probably not doing it for tax reasons. Right. They're just donating because they really love the ministry and they want to be part of it. But someone who's donating a large amount of money is doing it for tax reasons. And that money has to be secured. Like it has to be in our hot little nonprofit hands by the right date or it messes up their taxes.
And no one wants their taxes messed up. We don't want that on anybody. Not even our worst enemies, but I want to wish like the IRS knocking on their door.
And one of the problems is, so if you mail it by December 31st, as long as it has that postmark, you're fine, unless the post office loses it.
And I wouldn't put it past the USPS.
Right. And like we've had checks, never like end of year checks, but we have had checks go missing or like take months and months and months to get to us. They're always small. We always call the donor and we're like, hey, like your check just showed up. Do you still want us to cash it? Because I know that if I wrote a check 3 months ago, I'm not necessarily.
I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday because they were paying with something with a check. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little baffled. People still use. I was like, wow.
I use checks.
I was like, wow.
You don't use checks?
No. I actually, and so I mentioned it to this person. I was like, I actually can't remember the last time I wrote a check because I just don't. Like I have a debit card. Yeah. So if I need something like directly withdrawn, I try to use my credit cards because I want airline miles. But like I just use my debit card or I pay in cash. And like what was being paid for to me was not like I know people write checks for like church tithes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. I actually do all of my church giving online now.
Well, my church rescinded online giving during we had online giving during the pandemic, and then once like the worst of the pandemic ended, so did our online giving option. I think I was the only person using it.
It's just you.
And I think Pastor Brown was like, "You just figure it out. Like write the check." And I'm like, I refuse to write a check. So. Yeah, but no, there are people out there who still pay for things with checks.
I still use checks. Usually it's kid stuff, like writing a check to Trail Life or judo or a check for like fees for cross-country stuff.
Yeah.
But it is becoming more and more unusual. It used to be like, and it was funny because I'd see like my tithe check and like they were all sequential because it was like the only place I was writing checks to. And now that I can do online giving at church, that's helped a lot.
Yeah, I don't write checks. And so because of that,
our church, we do online giving.
Because of that, I don't balance a checkbook because I don't write checks.
It doesn't matter. You're supposed to write down all your debits.
Well, I keep track of that. Like, so I'm not just like I keep track of what I spend my money on and I have a budget, but like some people mean like specifically like you open the checkbook and like you.
Yeah.
No. Like, why would I? No.
All right. So on to the topic of the day.
Yeah. Now that we're 15 minutes in. If you want to write checks, write them to us. But like.
Or you can give online at promiseoflifenetwork.org/donate.
Yeah. It's way easier.
If you have to give by the end of the year for tax purposes or any other reason, feel free to email me podcast@promiseoflifenetwork.org and we can meet up and I'll tell you about the ministry and you can decide if you want to invest.
Yeah, I'll be here too this year. So if you want to have coffee with me, we can. But
we can have all three of us.
Yeah, but like honestly, Sarah's probably better.
I love coffee. I drink so much coffee at the end of the year because I meet with so many people and I love it with my entire heart.
That is fun.
I call it dust mote season because I feel like I just float around.
Oh, like a will-o-wisp.
Like a little dust mote.
Cute.
Okay, so we're going to talk about sex trafficking.
Yeah, I was like, we do actually have a topic for today.
We do have a topic, and it's kind of a downer, so I apologize. We're going to talk about sex trafficking, and the reason, so as you are listening or watching this, it is after Thanksgiving. Yeah. We're heavy now into the Christmas season.
We are thick into Christmas. In fact, it's December.
Right. So travel is happening, shopping is happening, and unfortunately, sex trafficking is happening.
Yeah.
So sex trafficking actually increases during the holidays.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that people are lonely. And people make sometimes very poor choices when they are lonely. And so they secure the services of someone who they believe will help them feel less lonely.
Yeah.
And they're not always, I'd like to think they're not thinking of that person's particular situation or why they're in that situation. So there's 3 types of sex work that this is like Sarah central. I might be the only person that's listening this way, but I do. So the first and the one that we think of the most often is straight up trafficking.
Okay. Yeah.
So the person, and this is defined as someone who's selling sexual services or labor services, because there's also labor trafficking, under force, fraud, or coercion.
Mm-hmm.
So they are being forced, they're being defrauded, or they're being coerced into providing a sexual service.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's the sort of movie vibe of like trapped, locked up, can't leave. But most often, the person is being kind of held with what I like to think of as like invisible chains.
Mm-hmm.
So they're afraid of being hurt. They don't have anywhere else to go. They don't have anyone who's loving them and looking out for them. They are emotionally bound to the person who's controlling them.
They might even be financially bound to that person, and so they're paying off a debt, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this person is like, you owe me this money because I brought you over from another country, or because I paid for your medical, or because I bought you clothes, whatever it is, and so you have to pay it off. And so there's a lot of coercion, a lot of psychological stuff going on in that. It's not always like, don't assume that because you see someone at the store and they're buying something, or they're shopping, or they have a cell phone, that they're somehow not being trafficked.
Right.
That's not true.
Yeah.
They could very much be being trafficked. The second one is also very problematic, and I refer to it, and others do as well, as survival sex.
Okay. Yeah.
So these are individuals who sometimes they've been trafficked in the past. So I kind of liken it to like, okay, like let's say I needed money, which I kind of do, but whatever.
I was like, we do, but also.
So like let's say I'm not working at the center, but I need money. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to probably go work at a department store, because in high school I worked at a department store. I really liked it. It feels very familiar to me. And I would feel comfortable going into a department store and saying, I need a job.
Yeah, you'd be a shoo-in. Like, you've got experience, you know what to do.
And so a lot of people who are engaging in survival sex have been trafficked in the past.
Yeah.
And so essentially, like my department store analogy, they are comfortable to a certain extent with sex work. They've done it before. They understand the rules. They understand the game. They know they can make money doing this. And so for whatever reason, they can't or won't get a traditional job. Maybe it's because they have a felony, or because they use drugs, or whatever. But they've lit on like prostituting themselves for money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that to be just as problematic. It's not a true choice. They're doing it because otherwise they can't live.
Yeah. They feel,
But they're not necessarily being forced into it. There's no force, there's no fraud, there's no coercion.
Right.
So they're not technically.
You're just returning to what you know.
Right, what you know, or it's the only thing it's the only option you see for keeping yourself alive. The other part of survival sex could be you only are having sex with one person, but that person is keeping you housed, fed, clothed, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a relationship where you're like, oh, I love this person, I want to be with this person. It's more like, okay, if I stop having sex with them,
it's fulfilling a need that you have.
I'm going to be kicked out. I'm not going to have anywhere to live. I'm not going to have food to eat. My kids might not have a place to live, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the third group. I would call this the smallest group. And that would be true voluntary sex work.
Yeah.
So they do have other options. They know they have other options. They choose to do sex work instead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think a lot of those people are probably being trafficked and don't realize it.
Yeah.
Or they've been trafficked in the past and they're not able to break away from it.
Yeah.
But for today, we're going to talk about true trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
So individuals who are having sex because of force, fraud, or coercion.
Mm-hmm.
So that does spike during the holidays. And there are some things that, first of all, trafficking is very closely tied to abortion.
Yes. So trafficking is linked to abortion because you have traffickers bringing in women that they are actively trafficking to receive abortions because pregnancy is a very natural consequence of having sex. And when you are having a lot of sex, your chances for pregnancy go way up.
Yes. And there are traffickers who will force their girls,
Mm-hmm.
the women they are trafficking, to have sex without protection.
Yeah.
Because they can charge more.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a young woman who's in her teens or 20s and she's having sex multiple times a day with multiple different men with no condom and no other protection, she's going to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Like the chances of her not getting pregnant are super low. And so abortion is used to cover up trafficking and to keep the person working and having sex.
Yeah. And
which is despicable.
This is something that's known in the abortion industry.
Oh, for sure.
Like and you could go look up, and there's all sorts of videos of people, who are either undercover or are just recording of going into abortion clinics and like actually stating like, oh, like I'm actually like, this is one of my girls, and talking about it. And, these abortion clinics are like, oh yeah, we understand.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Like no one's screening.
No. And the thing is, we at Promise of Life Network, every single client is screened for sex trafficking and labor trafficking.
Yeah.
And then if there are any red flags, we are doing referrals, we're offering help, we're offering assistance. And then if they're minors, we're reporting it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we know the laws, we train on the laws every year, and we report any underage sex. We report anything that seems suspicious because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And abortion clinics should be doing that as well.
Yeah.
And frankly,
not.
most of them are not.
Nope.
So this goes up over the holidays, but there are things that you can do. So I think we talk a lot about trafficking. It's something that's, I would say 10 years ago, nobody was talking about, but people are much more aware of it. However, like the big question is, what can I do about it? Is there anything I can do about it? So the first thing I recommend to people is have a bag in your car that you can give to someone who may be trafficked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may not know that they're being trafficked. They may appear just to be like a transient person or a homeless person, or whatever, and that's fine. But like, I have a bag in my car, and it has like water bottles, a flashlight. The batteries are out of the flashlight, so it doesn't like go dead just from sitting in the car. Like a kind of generic sports bra size, like maybe like a large, a t-shirt, a hat and gloves in the winter, and then resources, flyers for like local trafficking help, or like even just the national trafficking hotline. And that's something that you could do, and you can hand that bag to a young man or a young woman who maybe is just homeless, but they would still benefit from the items in the bag. They now have a nice sturdy backpack that they can carry and they can use for their whatever they need. And if they need the resources inside, they have access to them as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably like the most straightforward,
tangible. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing I recommend is that you take your phone.
Your phone that keeps buzzing during the podcast.
No, it's because of the international Slack. It's like going crazy.
Oh, you have yours set to buzz for the chat line?
No, not the actual chat line, but like the Slack chat.
Oh, the Slack. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh man.
No, that I turned that on. I was
supposed to say mine's on silent. Like I can see them, but I certainly can't hear them.
I can't even see them because it was too much.
Yeah.
It would just suck me right in.
Yeah.
So you can go online and you can Google human trafficking hotline. And I would recommend that you put that number in your cell phone. So the number is, and if you're driving, do not try to write this down. Just pull over and rewind, or just Google it. The number is 888-373-7888. And
I'll put it
on the screen for YouTube. Yes. So you can, if you suspect trafficking, you can contact the hotline and you can tell them what you see and the location that you see it in. And if they get enough reports or enough like a credible report, they can actually send someone to check it out. And you can also give this number to someone who may be in that situation, and then they can call it and they can get the help that they need. And a lot of times, unless it's like a violent situation is like going down right in front of you, it's better to call the hotline versus calling like the local cops, because they're going to end up calling the hotline anyway, because they don't necessarily have the ability to deal with it. And unfortunately, you don't always know that there are individuals in the police force that are.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, yeah, that's something that you have to think about is corruption on that level.
Right. And I'm not saying you should like suspect every police officer, because I'm sure 99% of them are just
it's just something to be aware of. And I think that's a huge thing when we talk about sex trafficking, is just awareness in general. Like even being aware of certain situations that could be sex trafficking, being aware of what you can do, being aware of your own surroundings, being aware of the vulnerabilities that suck people in. Like, I remember when I learned that, so there's one intersection in a very small town not too far from us. The town is just one intersection. Like, that's it. That's the town.
That's the town.
And for whatever reason, there are always signs in this town. And now I know why. It's because this town is very close to two major interstate exchanges. Yep. And there are like, and it's like weird signs. That's like barbershop ? With a phone number. And you're like, and I always just like, what a random place to advertise for a barbershop. It's trafficking. Like, it's trafficking. And just being aware of that kind of stuff, because, and I would like to think that I'm probably more aware than maybe the average person, just because of the nature of our work. Would have got me. I would have called if I needed the barber shop.
I need a haircut. And we are in an area where there's a county in our footprint where there's two major highways that run through it. It's very close to some major cities. It's like easy to get to. And because it's such a small population, like, of people that live there, the police presence is very small. Right. And so it's unfortunately used.
We're also very close to state lines.
Yes. Yeah. And it's unfortunately used to move girls through. And it's really frustrating, because it's like one of those things is happening. But unless you see something and you can call about it, there's not much else you can do.
Right.
Other than pray for them, which of course is the most important thing we can do.
Yeah.
So one, I always tell people, like, hey, keep your eyes open. Watch out for vulnerable youth during the holidays, teenagers at your church who are maybe having a hard time with their parents, whether or not it's the parents' fault. I mean, I think a lot of times it's just kids are tough and this is a hard time.
Teenagers are hard. Yeah.
Teenagers are hard. And so maybe there's a teen in your church and they suddenly have an older boyfriend or or girlfriend. Or they're suddenly getting really expensive things, like, oh, I have this Chanel bag, or I have this like name brand tennis shoe, or I have a really new phone, or I have two phones. That's another big sign if someone has two phones, especially if they, like, when one phone rings, they immediately have to like jump on it and answer it. If you have at your church or your like student, like if you have kids at their events, if you see kids being picked up by like someone who doesn't seem to be a parent or a family member. I mean, you don't want to like go and like blow someone's life up because like an older brother picked them up. But if you're seeing red flags, it's worth making a phone call. Yeah. And being like, hey, maybe to the school or a coach or something, and being like, I've noticed, so-and-so has like some really weird like accessories suddenly, and she has this extra phone, and I see this, 20-something man picking her up. What's going on? And see if anyone else has noticed.
Yeah. I think especially because we do live in small rural communities. Like, it's not that difficult to get to know people enough to be able to recognize a red flag. I think especially if your kids are in the school system, like my sister has gotten to know the moms in school pickup line because like you see them at the same time every day. And so, if someone else suddenly were to pick up another kid, even if it is a family member, it's worth noticing.
Right. Noticing, asking, checking into. The other thing, foster youth are at a huge risk. So traffickers are going to specifically go after kids, teens, young women who are not going to be missed. Now, not always. Sometimes it could be someone from a very stable family who's got mom and dad involved. Like, it's not saying that they're, exempt from this. Yeah. But that's typically going to be their kind of.
They're going after vulnerable people, and you can be vulnerable in multiple ways.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So be aware of who your kids are talking to. Pay attention to what's going on with their friends. The other thing you can do is this. I went and did this human trafficking training online. Now, I'll tell you, I actually did it because I wanted to see if it was good for people. My brother-in-law at the time was working as an electrician. And so I was like, hey, like, you're actually in a really unique position when you go into someone's home. If you see some of these red flags, like, you may see something that no one else is ever going to see. Right. Because you're going into the home as a service worker. So like, if you're a cable technician, an electrician, a contractor, like, you may see things that no one else is going to see, and you may be able to intervene in a situation that no one else could intervene in. And so I actually sent them this. It's from the Polaris Project, which is Polaris. So polarisproject.org/training, and you could do their human trafficking 101 training for free. And it's actually, I think it's really good. Now, I will tell you, it's not Christian. The Polaris Project is not a Christian organization. And so there may be some things that you don't agree with if you're a Christian and you're watching it. But it is still like very solid as far as identifying human trafficking and what to do about it. Right. Polaris also does a ton of research on on human trafficking and understanding human trafficking. And one of the things they study is the intersection between trafficking and legitimate business.
Mm-hmm.
Because while trafficking is an illegal business or illegitimate business, it intersects with banks and stores and like all these other places. And one of the things that's really interesting is that 75% of trafficking victims report that they were in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And where are lots of us going to be over the holidays?
Hotels.
In hotels.
Yeah.
And so trafficking is increasing over the holidays. A lot of us are traveling and we're in hotels over the holidays. So keep your eyes open if you see young women who don't seem to be dressed appropriately and they're hanging around and men are coming in and out of their room, like make the phone call. If you are seeing just anything that seems off or strange, if you're seeing girls who are being physically controlled by someone who's with them, and it doesn't seem like it's like a parent child, like, hey, like stop sassing and sit down, eat your toast kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Make a phone call, see what you can do, see what's going on. And you can report these things and still keep your family safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So what is our Jesus moment in all of this? Really peppy holiday episode. Like the Christmas special.
So one of the hallmarks, one of the cornerstones of Christianity is that we watch out for those who can't watch out for themselves.
Yeah.
Like that's just been throughout the ages. Christians have always looked out for people who are vulnerable, who are abused, who are hungry, who are alone. And we've tried to protect them and take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even imagine, like a lot of us, we were actually talking about this earlier at our staff meeting. A lot of us have family stress around the holidays.
Yeah.
I think most of us.
I think yeah. I was like, it's just how it is.
Yeah. But I can't even imagine being 13, 14, 15, 16 years old and having sex multiple times a day with men I don't know and don't trust and being away from my mom or my grandma or my aunt or my best friend or my cousin at Christmas.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're not going to get to go downstairs and open presents under the tree and you're not going to drink hot chocolate and you're not going to have yummy treats, that you're just going to be used and abused until you die.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds harsh and awful, and it is harsh and awful, and that's the reality for some of these young women. And so if one of us, you or I, or someone listening to this podcast, can this season identify a problem and make a call and save someone from that reality, that would be so much better than literally any Christmas present.
Yeah, for sure.
So pay attention. Take responsibility outside of your own, maybe your own circle. I mean, also take responsibility for your own circle.
Yeah.
Because anyone could be, especially young girls, but young girls and boys are both vulnerable. And ask questions and keep your eyes peeled. And if you see something and the Holy Spirit says, oh, something's up, make that phone call and do what you can.
Yeah.
Because God, the Lord, calls us to protect the weak and the fatherless. And I would guess that in that situation, no one is more alone or fatherless.
Yeah. So there you go. Thanks for tuning in.
Not our peppiest episode. We'll try to do a peppier one next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a really important one as we come into the holidays.
It is. Yeah. Keep your eyes open. Be aware. Be mindful.
Mm-hmm. Be demure.
Be demure. Say something. If you see something, say something. I think that's like the slogan.
Yep.
If you see something, say something.
And I'm Nebby in Pittsburghese.
Nebby, yeah.
I'm Nebby.
Yeah.
So like I 100% have like tried to follow girls who are engaging in sex work to ask them if they're okay. My husband has been like, please call me on the phone first. He's like, I know I'm an idiot. He knows I'm an idiot and I'm not going to stop doing that. But he's like, please at least have me on the phone so that like someone knows what happened if something terrible goes wrong. But I think a lot of people, like, you're busy, and
especially this time of year, there's so much going on that I think a lot can slip through the cracks.
Yes. Or we don't think about it till later. Like later you're sitting at home and you're thinking, crap, I saw that person in Walmart.
Yeah.
And things did seem off, but it didn't register at that moment. And now it's too late to like do anything about it.
Yeah. So just be aware.
Keep your eyes open. Pay attention. Make a phone call if you need to. And look out for everyone around you.
Yeah.
Whether they're being trafficked or not.
Yeah. All right.
So thank you so much. We'll see you next week, and we will try to be peppier. Peppy topic next week.